Usually, end credit sequences are supposed to get you super excited about what's next for the franchise. But as James Gunn gets ready to soft reboot DC, are any of the checks that these final chapters are writing worth anything? I think that people are wondering if the whole movie's worth anything, quite frankly, and sadly because Shazam 2 is actually a pretty darn good movie. But Shazam! Fury of the Gods has 2 end credit scenes, and the first one does seem to maybe throw an anchor into James Gunn's DC, particularly because it features 2 people on Team Gunn who are from the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, who he's protecting from his own soft reboot. That's Agent Harcourt, played by James Gunn's wife, Jennifer Holland, and Agent Economos, played by Steve Agee, who has appeared in several of Gunn's films over the years. They go way back to the beginning of Gunn's career. Both are expected to appear in the upcoming Waller series, which is basically Peacemaker, it's to Peacemaker what Boba Fett was to Mando. Hopefully, it goes over better. So it's actually like a backdoor, I think, second season to Peacemaker. And they confirm here that Waller doesn't just run the Suicide Squad, but she's now also running the Justice Society of America, aka the JSA. What? As Shazam says, you have a Justice League and a Justice Society of America? Why do they both have justice in the name? I agreed with him. It was poor branding. But at the end, you might be wondering, what the heck does Amanda Waller have to do with the Justice Society of America? How can she run 2 teams? Well, at the end of Peacemaker, Waller's daughter actually revealed the existence of the Suicide Squad to the press and therefore the world, along with her mother's involvement. So maybe Waller's gone legit, or she's trying to. Maybe this is a cover. We'll see, I'm sure, in the Waller series. Now, when Harcourt and Economos recruit Shazam for the JSA, does that mean Shazam will be on Waller's show, right? Are we bringing back also the remaining JSA members from Black Adam? The Harcourt and Economos banter is standard Gunn snark. Standard. And with Shazam, aka Billy Batson's teenage enthusiasm, is this a preview? You have to wonder of what Gunn's Superman will look like, with Superman filling in for Shazam. Gunn has said that his Superman film will highlight how kindness is considered old-fashioned these days. So will his Superman be the only nice guy in a planet full of jerks? Will James Gunn write how he would react to someone like Superman? I don't know how that would work, or at least if it would be the Superman movie that most people are looking for. I mean, again, we could be surprised, but when you think about how Gunn writes things and how the tone has been consistent to date, what is his Lex Luthor going to be like? It seems like he'd be a lot like Jesse Eisenberg's, maybe. And we all know that. I mean, I understood what Zack Snyder was trying to do with Jesse Eisenberg, but I think with Superman, people want the traditional stuff. So let's see. And James Gunn does seem to realize that, but I just don't know if he can resist putting his own filter over it. We've never seen a different tone from him, but we could be surprised. Anyway, it does seem like we're getting a little bit of a sneak peek here. Plus, again, maybe an idea of what's happening on the Waller show. And will Warner Brothers Discovery, who are strapped for cash, will they give the HBO Max show, Waller, enough money to have a JSA team that features Shazam? Zachary Levi has been very supportive of Gunn and Safran, saying like, whoa, guys, just hold off, give him a break. And I told you that he didn't have a contract for any more Shazam movies, but maybe he's going to be on Waller. That would be interesting. He's very good friends with Peter Safran in his personal life, and Peter Safran produces the Shazam movies as well as the Aquaman movies. And I'm sure Zachary Levi would just love to remain employed. Now, as for the other end credit sequence, speaking of remaining employed, it features the return of Mark Strong as Dr. Sivana, who's not only a good sport, but again, would love to have another gig. This end credit scene is more of a gag, a continuation of the end credit scene from the 2019 movie, where talking caterpillar Mr. Mind says he still plans to help Dr. Sivana, but it just takes him a really long time to get anything done because he's a caterpillar and he moves real slow. Wah, wah. But, Jeff Johns, by the way, was pushing Mr. Mind very hard during his run on Shazam, which was concurrent with these movies when they were coming out. And Jeff Johns was still pulling the strings at DC. And it actually, though, doesn't make any sense that it takes Mr. Mind a long time to do anything, because thanks to his psychic powers, he can take over the mind of any human and get them to not only carry him around, but do whatever he needs. So the gag is not only, I think, kind of corny, but again, it doesn't make sense. But also when you think about it, Mr. Mind is a character that would really, I think, fit with Gunn's aesthetic. And it's weird that how Gunn is turning out to be kind of like a combination of Geoff Johns and Zack Snyder with all the drama of both. It's really interesting that Warner Brothers has almost in some ways hired the exact same person again. All right, so let's talk about, and although some of us have theorized that only the exact same person can, transition away from, Zack Snyder and to some degree Geoff Johns, because he'll take that same fandom that those people appeal to with him. And there might be something to that. All right, so let's talk about Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Who cried? Who cried? I didn't actually cry, but I teared up, man. I teared up. During that final battle, I was blown away by the emotion and the VFX. They really did a great job making it seem like the stakes were very high and that Billy has to really struggle to win that fight, putting it all on the line and seemingly dying. I thought that was really beautiful. His real life shenanigans aside, Zachary Levi is a great comedic actor. We've known this for some time. Zachary Levi has been a fan favorite for a while. And like a lot of great comedic actors, he's also very good at quieter emotional moments as well. Even when he was throwing up hands or lightning, I thought that was great. I thought he did that with a lot of flair. And then when he was going against the dragon's fire, he really sold that. I believed his heroic sacrifice. I thought that was phenomenal. Other great Zachary Levi moments, when after his teenage self finally calls Rosa mom, he turns back into Shazam, and then Zachary Levi winks at Rosa and gives her a knowing smile, and I thought that was really great. I thought that was a really great quiet moment. Also, when the kids tell Victor and Rosa their big secret, which was that they had superpowers, but Pedro, who at the moment had his powers stolen from him, so he's in his teenage form, by the Daughters of Atlas, he thinks what the big secret means is that he's gay. So he blurts that out. And the way that Zachary Levi instantly turned to him and supportively said, we know, buddy. I just thought he did that so well. And I thought it was a really nice moment. It had a comedic aspect to it too, but it was not, a lot. So there's like, Ted Lasso, of course. I was just at a Ted Lasso screening the other night, and everybody was talking about how great it was to see kindness used in comedy in these shows. And I think that Zachary Levi has that quality a little bit himself as well, and so does Shazam. So I thought that was really great. He did that very much like I think Ted Lasso would, actually, come to think of it. I felt Zachary Levi delivered again and again during this movie, and he had great acting scene partners to help him do so. One is obviously Helen Mirren, and they say a hero is only as good as their villain, and she was fantastic. What a great foil for him. Her Hespera has a stoic, godly quality, yet also a wry wit, a fun factor, even though she's so serious, that allows her to spar with this family of superheroes rather than just dismiss them. She'll play along, and it's great. Her reading of the letter was hilarious. Dictated, not read, for sure. And also, I thought the Philly cheesesteak lunch meeting was phenomenal. And I loved when she intentionally got herself captured and then returning to her realm, playfully tossed up the golden apple and caught it. I thought that was great. She's like, got him. I loved the way I didn't see that coming, that the door back to the wizard's lair would be the door that Hespera used to escape back. And that was great. I thought that was a really great moment. And the doors are so Monsters, Inc. It's such a ripoff of that, but that's okay. I think they're fun. The other big assist for Zachary Levi acting-wise, I thought was Grace Fulton's Mary. Billy Batson is the second oldest in the group, but he gets a lot of great advice from Mary, who is the oldest. And she does a great job of grounding him and getting him ready for the reality of being an adult. I loved her speech about wanting to contribute to the family, to do her part. And of course, she was talking about financially, but I think that means just for the bigger picture. If you're going to be a part of something, you need to help it to survive. You just can't take, you have to give. I thought that was really a great teachable moment. But Mary also, importantly, isn't a Karen. In fact, when she's asked what she would do, Mary says, I'm not the one who called this meeting, and that was great. Her level-headedness makes her, I think, a real asset to the team, in and out of costume. Loved her a lot. Action sequences. I thought the bridge sequence in the beginning was phenomenal. We see a lot of bridge sequences in action and superhero movies, but this one seemed really realistic and they made it seem fresh. I love the jobs that they gave everyone. I thought, wow, this actually is a good bridge rescue. And I agreed with Billy. How crazy was it that I Need a Hero was playing at the exact moment that he saved that woman in her car? I thought that was great. I also like the powers of the Daughters of Atlas, especially in the opening sequence in Athens. First off, I was like, wow, do the museums around Athens, around the Parthenon, really look that awesome? It looks great. And speaking of being open for business, the Daughters of Atlas mean business. I loved when they walked in the room. I thought at first it was their henchmen, but it was them. And first, Calypso enchants everyone to turn on each other, her curse spreading via whisper, a demonic game of telephone. And then Hespera, who can control the elements, that one never really vibed for me. I was like, none of this seems like elements, but okay. But I thought it was very cool when she turned everyone in the room into stone, like a modern Pompeii. I thought that was great. As for Rachel Zegler, her ability to inception the physical plane also didn't make a lot of sense to me. I was like, I don't get this, but it looked cool, thanks to, again, amazing VFX throughout the film. Lucy Lou's dragon also looked way better than it did in the trailers. I was like, that is a cool dragon. And when Lucy Lou's Calypso plants the golden apple on Earth in the middle of that stadium, I was as shocked as everyone in the movie when those monsters started hatching from the roots of the tree. I've seen some other reviewers criticizing those monsters, but I thought they looked great. I loved it, and I appreciated how dangerous they were. One even carried away director David F. Sandberg. Speaking of cameos, I don't know about you, but I got the feeling that there were a lot of cameos in the movie from people who worked behind the scenes, because you could tell they weren't quite professional actors. But that was okay. Again, there was a sweetness to it, like Ted Lasso. I think the Ted Lasso comparison is actually excellent. But I thought there was a sweetness to that, being like, they should get recognized for their contributions. You can play the police officer. You can play the person on the street. I thought that was great. Oh, and of course, the whole bit about how unicorns are real, but they're actually vicious creatures. Djimon Hounsou talking about them was hilarious. And all the other monsters fear them. They should. They got swords on their foreheads. But Darla is able to tame them with the closest thing we have on Earth to the nectar of the gods, ambrosia, and that's Skittles. The rallying cry of taste the rainbow, mofos, and then having it drowned out as they charged into battle on the unicorns was pretty memorable. I was calling it a product placement, but one of you said to me that you felt it was a straight out commercial, and I would agree with that. I thought that was hilarious. There is action throughout the film, but there's also a lot of good dialogue too. I loved seeing the Shazam family in the wizard's lair, and I felt they fixed it up real nice. And I also loved the reveal of the library with Steve the all-knowing pen, and I loved those sequences. It actually reminded me of the Library of the Gods from Thor's comic books as of late, or something out of Harry Potter, but I felt it really worked. In the recent comics that he wrote, Jeff Johns introduced the 7 magic lands. There was the Dark Lands, the land of the dead, like Hades, which is interesting because aren't the Shazam family supposed to be related to Greek mythology? So what? But anyway, it made no sense. But anyway, but neither is that library. I guess there's the Library of Alexandria, but they didn't make that connection. Darn it. The Earthlands, which is supposed to, I think, be, our world. The Funlands, a giant theme park. Gamelands, all about video games. Think like Ready Player One. Monsterlands, full of monsters. The Wildlands, an edgier Zootopia. And then the Wazunderlands, which was actually a combination of Alice in Wonderland and the Wizard of Oz. Both in the public domain. So you can do that. In the comics, again, I thought this was very silly. But after seeing how well this giant library worked, I was like, maybe we could do this, especially with David F. Sandberg overseeing it. I really trust him at this point with this character because this works so well in the movie. I think we could do it, but the Shazam 2's box office is looking so poor, I don't know if we're ever going to revisit this. But as I said, Shazam might live on in the Waller series, so maybe someday. Someone who I wish had an action sequence was Wonder Woman. What a missed opportunity. At first, she shows up in Billy's, let's say, romantic dream in Paris, and we don't see her face. And I think that's where it came about that they were using a body double. If Gal Gadot won't do it, I think that's a pretty good sign that they shouldn't film it. Because this reminded me, the way this went down reminded me of that horrible faceplant sequence from Justice League, which Gal Gadot wouldn't film, and they also had to use a body double for. But here, the wizard trying to reach Billy manages to break into his dream, and we see his face on Wonder Woman's body. And I thought it wasn't funny, and I thought it was just disrespectful to Wonder Woman again, and it was the only thing in the movie that didn't work, and I thought was in poor taste. And again, it had to do with Wonder Woman. And then at the end, she showed up to bring the Garden of the Gods back to life. They said, we need a spark of a god. And she's like, here you go. And I was like, is she a god? I mean, I guess they reworked her as being the illegitimate daughter of Zeus. So she's half a god. She's a demigod. So I guess it works. But I don't know. I felt she was just wasted here. She was really just giving Billy the brush off and winking at the audience. So I didn't think it worked. I didn't even think it was necessary. If she wasn't going to join in for the final fight, I don't think they should have done it. Then, interestingly, Shazam! Fury of the Gods actually runs on 2 tracks. There's Billy trying to let go of his fear of abandonment. I thought the opening scene of him sharing his feelings with Billy's pediatrician were fantastic. That's PJ Byrne, of course, very funny guy. And I liked when, he brought up that newspaper and Shazam Billy says, "Nobody reads the Tribune." And the pediatrician was like, I do. That was great. But then there's also Billy's best friend and foster brother who helped him so much in the first movie, Freddie. And Freddie doesn't want to be Billy's sidekick. He wants to be his own hero. So, almost like the movie's almost like a parent saying, okay, you can both have your own storylines. That's funny. And he wants to be his own hero. And he, of course, comes across Rachel Zegler's and Thea posing as Anna, a high school student, which results in Freddie being the first to lose his powers. I couldn't believe, by the way, they killed off Diedrich Bader's teacher like that. I was like, oh, I'm sure someone's going to catch him or Shazam's going to come flying by. And they didn't actually show it, but they referenced it, and he was killed. That was amazing. That's why I said 80s dark family movie. But because Freddie loses his powers first, we see very little of Adam Brody. Jack Dylan Grazer gets all the screen time. And Grazer is a Nepo baby. His uncle is mega producer Brian Grazer. But I do think he's genuinely talented. For instance, he does a lot of voice work lately. He did the voice of Jonathan Kent in Super Sons, and he did an incredible job. He's very, very good. And he has a lot of funny and heartfelt moments here too, easily carrying his half of the movie, while Zachary Levi carries the other half. I think the reason Freddie, by the way, was able to stand up to the fear dragon was because he has a lot of self-hate. I thought that's the feeling that I got. And he was already afraid all the time anyway. I mean, I wasn't sure if that's what it was, but I thought it was interesting and warranted, I think, maybe a little more exploration. But because Jack Dylan Grazer is such a great actor, I kind of got it anyway. And I really enjoyed his scenes with the wizard when they ended up being in prison together. I thought that was great. And as I said in my non-spoiler review, Djimon Hounsou can be very funny, and I'm glad he got the opportunity to do so here. And I was so happy that he got a makeover at the very end. He looked great, and I love that he had an Uber waiting for him. I thought he pulled off that joke. I thought it was good. So that's my spoiler review of Shazam! Fury of the Gods and my thoughts on those 2 end credit sequences. Again, I think if you realize it's a family movie, an 80s dark family movie, like an 80s movie that's just dark enough to still qualify as a family movie, it's really enjoyable. And it's a real shame that it's in this weird spot of this transition between the Snyderverse and then the Gunverse. I know some of you say not to call it the Gunverse, and I'll stop calling that as soon as he gives me a reason not to. All right, share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.